The death of John Denver is shrouded in mystery and secrets. Today, we're looking deeper into how John lost control while attempting to switch fuel tanks and answering the question of why he was allowed to fly with low fuel. Less than half a tank. The story of John Denver begins in 1943, when he was born as Henry John Deutschendorf Jr., after his dad, Henry Deutschendorf Sr., a U.S. Air Force pilot, and his mother, Irma Louise Deutschendorf, a receptionist. Due to the nature of his father's job, the family moved around a lot. They lived in New Mexico, Oklahoma, Arizona, Alabama, and Texas. Because they moved so frequently, and John being an introvert, he found it hard to make friends easily. When they moved to Montgomery, Alabama, the thing that helped him make friends was a guitar gifted to him by his grandmother at the age of 11. When he played the guitar, his classmates felt connected to him. Just as he was adapting and finally finding some stability, his family moved again, this time to Fort Worth, Texas. Here, the kids alienated him once more, so much so that he quit school and fled to California in hopes of starting a music career. But his taste of freedom was short-lived. His father soon tracked him down, brought him back to Texas, and re-enrolled him in high school. John eventually finished high school and, in 1961, enrolled at Texas Tech University in Lubbock to study architecture. While there, he joined a folk group called the Alpine Trio. Around this time, he adopted the stage name John Denver, believing it sounded more fitting for folk music than his birth name, John Deutschendorf. He began landing regular gigs at local clubs, and by 1963 realized his true ambition was to become a music star. He left college behind and moved to Los Angeles to fully pursue his passion. After performing with a group for a few years, Denver struck out on his own in 1969. His gamble paid off. He released his debut album with RCA Records, marking the start of a flourishing solo career. Between the late 1960s and mid-1970s, he produced 6 albums, 4 of which became major successes. Among his most celebrated hits were Take Me Home, Country Roads, Thank God I'm a Country Boy, and Annie's Song. Did you know John Denver wrote Annie's Song for his wife, Annie Martell, in about 10 minutes while riding a ski lift in Aspen, Colorado? At the time, their relationship had gone through a difficult period, but things were beginning to improve again. Surrounded by nature and a sense of relief, he began thinking about his wife, and the lyrics came to him almost instantly. Despite Annie's Song becoming an international hit and selling nearly 2 million copies, the rekindled love it symbolized was not enough to save their marriage. They divorced in 1982. During their divorce, following a dispute over the division of property, specifically after Martell cut down some trees on their property, an enraged Denver barged into her home, threw her onto a kitchen table, and began choking her. Following the altercation, Denver used a chainsaw to cut their marital bed in half. John attributed the violent outbursts to alcohol addiction. Yet despite the collapse of his marriage and the personal struggles that followed, he wrote around 200 songs and sold over 35 million albums worldwide. His most interesting song was Leaving on a Jet Plane. He said he wrote that song because he really liked airplanes. He had a lifelong passion for flying, second only to his music. John's dad taught him how to fly, and John kind of idolized him in a way. His father even became his pilot and flew the Learjet for him on tours.
I hope you folks recognize me, but I'm not sure you recognize the gentleman on my right. He's my father, Dutch Deutschendorf. He's been a pilot all his life. He taught me how to fly. Simply couldn't do this film without him.
By 1997, when John Denver was 53 years old, he was a seasoned pilot with over 2,700 flight hours. On October 12, 1997, that fateful day of the crash, he was flying a home-built Rutan Long-EZ aircraft he had purchased just days earlier, an experimental plane with a canard layout and several modifications, including a rear-mounted 150-horsepower Lycoming 0320 engine and a fuel selector valve, moved to an awkward position over the pilot's left shoulder. It is important to note the plane was built by an individual, not by a factory, and subsequently sold to John. The morning of October 12, 1997, started as usual. At 10 a.m., John was playing golf with friends at Pebble Beach. Friends encouraged him to stay longer, but he declined since he was eager to fly his new plane, though they agreed to meet later for dinner. But unfortunately, John wouldn't make it. In the afternoon at 4 p.m., he arrived at Monterey Peninsula Airport in his Porsche and conducted a thorough pre-flight inspection. Noting the fuel levels were low, less than half a tank on the right wing, about a quarter on the left. He declined a fuel top-up, stating he would only fly for about an hour. At 5 p.m., John was cleared for takeoff on runway 28. He performed 3 touch-and-go maneuvers, which are practiced takeoffs and landings, to familiarize himself with the Long-EZ, completing them without incident. At 5:12 p.m., ground control eventually cleared him for takeoff, and he headed to the skies. Shortly after, at approximately 5:28 p.m., while flying over Pacific Grove, California, at about 500 feet, the aircraft suddenly banked sharply to the right and descended into the ocean. Witnesses reported hearing a popping or backfiring sound from the engine just before the dive.
We were just watching it, and all of a sudden there was a puff and a popping sound, and it just kind of went up a little bit and absolutely straight down, not spiraling, just absolutely straight down, and then it disappeared behind the rock.
The plane impacted nose first in about 30 feet of water, approximately 300 yards, 274 meters, off the coast. The crash was non-survivable. Only fragments of John's body and plane were recovered. Contributing factors identified by the NTSB included fuel starvation. The aircraft ran out of usable fuel in the selected tank because the pilot did not switch to the other tank, which still held fuel. Modification issues. The aircraft was modified by the builder to place the fuel selector valve in an unconventional location, behind the pilot's left shoulder rather than between the pilot's legs. Transition training. Despite his extensive flying experience, John had limited time in this particular aircraft, and the Long-EZ's controls differed significantly from conventional planes. Failed pre-flight check. The NTSB noted that Denver failed to refuel the plane before flight, despite the fuel gauges being difficult to see, and the right tank having less than half fuel, and the left less than a quarter. John's pilot medical certificate had been revoked in 1997 due to prior alcohol-related incidents and FAA rules, although post-mortem toxicology confirmed no alcohol or drugs were present in his system at the time of the crash. John Denver's legacy extends far beyond the tragedies he faced. In October 2014, he received a star on the legendary Hollywood Walk of Fame, with 2 of his children, Jesse Bell and Zachary, present for the grand unveiling. Today, his music continues to touch the hearts of countless individuals, offering comfort and inspiration through its enduring power. In Aspen, Colorado, his lyrics are engraved on massive granite boulders, creating a living legacy where fans can walk through his poetry, amid the nature he spent his life protecting.